The security guard almost didn't let him enter the building. A 65-year-old man in a worn gray suit carrying a briefcase from the 1980s didn't look like he belonged in the gleaming glass tower of Apex Innovations. But when he revealed who he really was and what he had come to reclaim, everyone in that boardroom would learn the most expensive lesson of their careers. Robert Chen stood at the entrance of the building he hadn't seen in 23 years. The morning sun reflected off the chrome and glass facade like a mirror, almost blinding in its modernity. His reflection in the revolving door showed a man time had marked deeply, silver hair thinning at the crown, age spots on his weathered hands, the slight stoop of shoulders that had carried too many burdens. He wore the same gray suit he'd bought in 1998, now slightly too large for his frame. The briefcase in his hand was genuine leather, but cracked and faded. His tie was clip-on, a detail that any young professional would mock. And his shoes, polished to perfection despite their age, were the comfortable orthopedic kind that screamed old man. The lobby was designed to intimidate. 30-foot ceilings, minimalist furniture in chrome and white leather, digital displays showing real-time company metrics, and young employees in expensive suits rushing past with their MacBooks and lattes. Robert approached the reception desk slowly, his gait careful. Years of back problems made quick movements painful. The receptionist, a young woman no older than 25 with perfectly styled blonde hair and a name tag that read Madison, looked up from her phone with barely concealed annoyance. "Can I help you?" Her tone suggested she already knew he was in the wrong place. "Good morning. I have a meeting scheduled with the executive board." Robert Chen. Madison's perfectly microbladed eyebrows rose. She typed something on her tablet, then frowned. "I don't see any Robert Chen on today's schedule." She looked him up and down with unconcealed disdain. "Are you sure you have the right building?" "The senior center's actually 3 blocks down, I'm sure," Robert interrupted gently. "Could you please check under shareholder emergency meeting?" Madison sighed dramatically, as if he'd asked her to solve a complex mathematical equation. After more typing, her expression changed slightly. "Oh, there is a Robert Chen listed, but double quotes," she trailed off, clearly confused. Sir, this meeting is for shareholders only. Major shareholders. Are you sure someone didn't make a mistake when they—" "No mistake. I own 51% of this company." The words fell like stones in water. Madison stared at him as if he'd just claimed to be the King of England. "You what? 51% of Apex Innovations?" "I'm the majority shareholder. Now could you please direct me to conference room A?" Madison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She picked up the phone with trembling hands. "Mr. Hartley? There's a man here claiming to be Robert Chen. He says he owns double quotes." She lowered her voice to a whisper. 51% of the company?" Robert could hear the tinny voice on the other end exploding in anger. "Security? No, he hasn't tried anything. He just—" "Yes, sir. Right away." She hung up and gave Robert a look that mixed pity with contempt. "Sir, Mr. Hartley says there must be some confusion. He's sending security to escort you out. If you leave quietly, they won't press charges for trespassing." "I'll wait," Robert said simply, sitting down on one of the uncomfortable chrome chairs. Madison typed furiously on her phone, probably alerting everyone in the building about the crazy old man in the lobby. 2 security guards arrived within minutes. Both were young, fit, and clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Sir," the first one said, actually sounding apologetic, "we're going to have to ask you to leave. I'm Robert Chen. I own this company. I have every right to be here." The guards exchanged glances. The second one, whose name tag read Marcus, spoke more gently than his colleague. "Sir, I don't know who told you that, but Apex Innovations is owned by Hartley Ventures Group. Mr. James Hartley is the CEO and primary stakeholder. There's no Robert Chen in our ownership records. Check the original incorporation documents from 1987. You'll find my name." 1987? The first guard scoffed. "Sir, that's almost 40 years ago. Even if you were involved back then, things change. Companies get sold. I think maybe you're confused. I'm not confused. I'm the founder, and I'm here to reclaim what's mine." The situation was attracting attention. Young employees gathered at a distance, phones out, clearly filming or texting about the scene. Robert could hear whispered comments. "Is he homeless? Probably dementia. Poor thing. Someone call Adult Protective Services. I'm posting this on LinkedIn. This is wild." Marcus pulled out his radio. "Front desk situation escalating. Requesting supervisor." Within minutes, a man in his mid-40s arrived, wearing an expensive navy suit and an expression of extreme irritation. His name tag identified him as Derek Walsh, Director of Operations. What the hell's going on here? He looked at Robert with undisguised contempt. Who are you? Robert Chen, founder and majority shareholder of Apex Innovations. Derek's face went from annoyed to furious. Are you fucking kidding me? Security, get this con artist out of here before I call the actual police. I have documentation, Robert said calmly, patting his briefcase. Original incorporation papers, stock certificates, board meeting minutes from Listen, Grandpa. Derek cut him off viciously. I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but it ends now. This company was founded by James Hartley in 2001. Everyone knows that. It's literally on our website, our press releases, every piece of marketing material we have. That's incorrect. The company was founded in 1987 by myself and 3 partners. James Hartley joined in 1998 as a junior analyst. The crowd of onlookers had grown. Someone was clearly live streaming the entire encounter. Derek pulled out his phone and began typing. Let me Google this for you, old man. Apex Innovations founder. Oh, look. Founded by visionary entrepreneur James Hartley in 2001, see? You're not even in the search results. Now get out before I have you arrested for harassment. Robert remained seated. The company was restructured and renamed in 2001. Before that, it was called Chun Technologies. James led the rebrand after I left. Derek laughed cruelly. So even in your own delusional story, you abandoned the company and now you want to come back and claim ownership? That's not how the world works, buddy. I didn't abandon it. I stepped away temporarily to care for my wife. She had Alzheimer's. I took a leave of absence in 2000, with the understanding that my shares would be held in trust until I could return. Alzheimer's? A young woman in the crowd said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Maybe he has Alzheimer's. Would explain why he's so confused. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Marcus, the kinder security guard, put a hand on Robert's shoulder. Sir, I really don't want to physically remove you. Please, just go home. Call your family. I'm sure they're worried about you. My wife passed away 14 months ago. I've spent the last year settling her affairs and dealing with my own health issues. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving until I speak to the board. The board? Derek was almost screaming now. The board doesn't meet with random old men who wander in off the street. Jesus Christ, this is insane. What kind of building security do we even have if geriatric con artists can just walk in? Madison spoke up from her desk. I'm so sorry, Mr. Walsh. He seemed harmless. I thought maybe he was just confused. Confused? Derek turned his venom on her. He's either confused or he's running a scam. Either way, it's embarrassing. We have investors visiting today. What if they saw this? He turned back to Robert. You have exactly 10 seconds to walk out that door, or I'm calling the police and having you arrested for trespassing, attempted fraud, and elder abuse of yourself. The crowd laughed harder. Robert could hear them talking. Elder abuse of yourself. That's hilarious. Poor old guy. Probably off his meds. Why do old people always think they're more important than they are? Okay, Boomer, time to go home. Robert stood slowly, his knees aching. For a moment, everyone thought he was leaving. But instead, he opened his briefcase. The security guards tensed immediately. Sir, don't, but Robert didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a yellowed document protected in a clear plastic sleeve. Then another. Then another. Stack after stack of papers, all carefully preserved. Original articles of incorporation, dated March 15, 1987, he said quietly, laying them on the reception desk. Stock certificates showing 51% ownership by Robert Chen. Board meeting minutes from 1987 through 2000. Tax documents. Partnership agreements. Derek snatched one of the documents and squinted at it. His face went slightly pale. These could be faked. Anyone can print old-looking documents. They're notarized, every single one, with original seals. Call the notaries, call the county clerk, call the SEC. Every single one of these documents is registered and legally binding. The crowd had gone quieter. A few people were Googling furiously on their phones. One young man shouted from the back, "Holy shit! Google Chun Technologies 1990s. It's real." The company existed, another voice. There's a TechCrunch article from 1995 about Robert Chen being a rising star in Silicon Valley. Derek's hands were shaking as he flipped through the documents. This IT doesn't prove anything. Companies change ownership all the time. Shares get diluted, bought out, transferred, not without the shareholders' consent. And I never consented. I never sold. I never transferred. I signed a temporary leave agreement that stated my shares would be held in trust by the board until my return. I'm now returning. 23 years later? Derek's voice cracked. You expect anyone to believe you just forgot about a company for 23 years? I didn't forget. I chose my wife over my career. And when she needed me, nothing else mattered. Not the company, not the money, not the prestige. Only her. The words landed differently than anything else he'd said. Some of the mockery died in the crowd. A few people looked uncomfortable. Marcus cleared his throat. Mr. Walsh, maybe we should let Mr. Hartley handle this. If there's even a chance this is real, it's not real. Derek insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. It can't be real. Mr. Hartley owns this company. He built it from nothing. He built it from what I started, Robert interrupted quietly. And he knows it. Which is why he's terrified to face me. Mr. Hartley isn't terrified of anything, especially not confused old men with fake documents. Then bring him down here. Let him tell me to my face that I don't own this company. Derek pulled out his phone and walked away, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. The crowd was now fully engaged. The live stream had hundreds of viewers. Comments were flying. This is better than Netflix? Plot twist. The old guy is telling the truth. If this is real, the CEO is screwed. Someone call a lawyer. And this is about to get insane. Robert sat back down, his body exhausted but his mind clear. He'd known this wouldn't be easy. He'd known they'd mock him, dismiss him, try to throw him out. But he also knew something they didn't. Every word he'd spoken was true. And in about 5 minutes, when James Hartley walked into that lobby, the entire foundation of Apex Innovations' corporate story was about to crumble. Because the man they'd ridiculed, the crazy old man with fake documents, was about to prove he was exactly who he claimed to be. And the company that bore a different name now had been built on his brilliance, his vision, and his stolen legacy. Robert touched the wedding ring he still wore on his left hand. I'm doing this for us, Margaret. Like I promised. The elevator dinged. James Hartley was coming down, and the real confrontation was about to begin. The elevator doors opened like the curtain on a stage, and James Hartley stepped out like a man accustomed to being the star of every room he entered. At 52, he looked like a poster child for successful aging in the executive class. Silver hair, perfectly styled, year-round tan from his villa in CABO. Tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Robert's monthly rent. And that specific kind of confident stride that came from never being told no. He was flanked by 2 lawyers in equally expensive suits, one carrying an iPad, the other a leather portfolio. The crowd of employees parted instinctively like subjects before a king. James's eyes scanned the lobby, landing on Robert with an expression that cycled through surprise, recognition, and something darker, fear, quickly masked by aggression. Robert, he said, his voice booming across the marble floor. Robert Chen. My God, is it really you? For a moment, Robert thought maybe James would do the right thing. Maybe after all these years, some kernel of decency remained. That hope died in seconds. What are you doing here? James's tone shifted from surprise to theatrical concern. Derek, why didn't you tell me we had a ... situation? He emphasized the word like Robert was a plumbing problem. Mr. Hartley, I tried to have him removed, but he's claiming. I know what he's claiming. James cut him off. He walked closer to Robert, lowering his voice to something resembling sympathy. Robert, look at you. What happened? Last I heard, you were taking care of Margaret. How is she? She passed away. 14 months ago. James's face arranged itself into an expression of sorrow so performative it could have won an Oscar. Oh, Robert, I'm so sorry. Margaret was a wonderful woman. He turned to the crowd. Everyone give us some space, please. This is a private matter. But he made no move to go anywhere private. He wanted the audience. Robert, I can see you've been through a lot. Losing a spouse, it changes a person. Makes them confused, desperate, sometimes even delusional. It's completely understandable. I'm not delusional, James. I'm here to reclaim my company. James's expression hardened for a flash before returning to concerned paternalism. Your company? Robert, I think grief has affected your memory. You left in 2000. You signed termination papers. I signed temporary leave papers, not termination. My shares were to be held in trust. Trust? James laughed, but it was nervous. Robert, that was 23 years ago. You've been gone longer than most of these employees have been alive. Do you have any idea how much has changed? This isn't the little tech company you remember. We're a multinational corporation now, publicly traded. Billions in revenue, built on my foundation. Built on innovation and hard work by hundreds of people who've actually been here, Robert. Not by someone who disappeared for 2 decades. One of the lawyers stepped forward, a sharp-featured woman in her 30s. Mr. Chen, I'm Jennifer Blackwell, Chief Legal Counsel for Apex Innovations. I've reviewed the documents you presented. While they appear to be authentic historical records, they have no bearing on current ownership structure. They have every bearing. I never sold my shares. You abandoned them, Jennifer said coldly. In corporate law, there's a concept called constructive abandonment when a shareholder disappears for an extended period, makes no attempt to exercise their rights, attends no meetings, casts no votes, and makes no contact with the company for over 2 decades. They forfeit their claim. That's not true, and you know it, Robert said. There are specific legal procedures for share forfeiture, none of which were followed. Because we thought you were dead, James interjected. Seriously, Robert, we had no idea where you were. You changed your phone number, moved to God knows where, never responded to any correspondence. I was in Portland. Same address Margaret and I moved to in 2000. The address that's on file with the company's records department. James faltered for just a second. Well, I don't personally manage the records department, Robert. If they failed to update your contact information, they didn't fail. You deliberately lost track of me. That's a serious accusation. James's voice took on an edge. And frankly, it sounds paranoid. Look, Robert, I understand you're grieving. You probably need money. Medical bills from Margaret's care, I'm guessing? Alzheimer's treatment is expensive. I get it. He pulled out his wallet and extracted several $100 bills, holding them out like one might offer treats to a dog. Here. Take this, get yourself a nice hotel room, a good meal. We can set up a proper meeting next week with lawyers present, work out some kind of retirement package for you. Something to honor your contributions from the old days. The condescension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Robert didn't take the money. I don't want charity, James. I want what's mine. What's yours? James's mask finally slipped, anger breaking through. You want what's yours? Let me tell you what's yours, Robert. Nothing. You walked away. You chose your wife over the company, which fine, that's your choice. But choices have consequences. While you were playing nurse, I was building an empire. I was working 100-hour weeks. I was making the deals, courting the investors, steering the ship through the dot-com crash, the 2008 recession, every goddamn crisis for 2 decades. Me, not you. The lawyers looked uncomfortable, but James was on a roll. You know what this company was worth when you left? $3 million. You know what it's worth now? $3 billion. With a B? Did you build that? Did you earn that? I built the foundation. The foundation? James laughed bitterly. The foundation was nothing. It was a small-time operation that would have gone bankrupt in 6 months if I hadn't saved it. Everything you're seeing, this building, these employees, the technology, the patents, the brand, I created that. Not you. Derek and several other executives had moved closer, emboldened by James's tirade. Mr. Chen, Derek said with newfound confidence, even if what you're saying about the old company is true, you don't understand how corporations work. The company you knew doesn't exist anymore. It was restructured in 2001, renamed, reincorporated. Your old shares are worthless. They're shares of a dissolved entity. Restructuring doesn't eliminate shareholder rights unless done properly through legal dissolution and new incorporation, which would have required my vote as majority shareholder. Jennifer, the lawyer, jumped in. Mr. Chen, the restructuring was done in full compliance with all regulations. Notice was sent to all shareholders of record. I never received notice. That's not our problem if you moved and didn't. Update your address. I didn't move. I was at the same address. The notice was never sent. Do you have proof it wasn't sent? Jennifer's smile was sharp. Because we have proof it was. Certified mail, return receipt requested. It's all in our files. Then your files are fraudulent. That's defamation. Mr. Chen, I'd be careful what you accuse us of. The crowd was eating this up. Phones were everywhere. Robert could see the live stream comments flying past on someone's screen nearby. Old guy is getting destroyed. This is sad. Someone help him. He really thinks he owns the company, LOL. Boomer delusion is real. James moved closer, his voice dropping to something almost kind, which somehow made it more cruel. Robert, listen to me. I'm trying to help you here. You're embarrassing yourself. These people are recording you. This is going to end up all over the internet. Delusional old man claims to own billion-dollar company. Is that really how you want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as the man who built Chen Technologies and won't let it be stolen. Stolen? James exploded again. I didn't steal anything. You gave it up. You chose your wife over your career, which is fine, but now you want to come back after she's dead and reclaim everything like no time has passed. That's not how life works. The cruelty of the statement, the implication that Margaret's death was a convenience, hit Robert like a physical blow. Don't you dare, Robert said, his voice shaking for the first time. Don't you dare talk about Margaret like that. I'm not talking about Margaret. I'm talking about reality. You're 65 years old, Robert. You look like you're about to keel over. You're wearing a suit from the Clinton administration. You probably don't even know what TikTok is. And you want to come in here and run a cutting-edge tech company? Madison, the receptionist, giggled. Others joined in. Mr. Hartley's right, a young executive said loudly. No offense, sir, but you're too old for this world. Tech moves too fast. You'd be lost in a week. I built the algorithms you're still using, Robert said quietly. Algorithms from the 90s, James shot back. We've rewritten everything 10 times over. Nothing you created still exists in our code base. The core architecture is gone, upgraded, modernized, improved by people who actually understand current technology. James turned to the crowd. Does anyone here think this man could code his way out of a paper bag? Look at him. He probably still uses Internet Explorer. The laughter was louder now, crueler. A young developer shouted, Betty doesn't even know what the cloud is. Another, someone teach Grandpa how to use Zoom. Robert felt the familiar burn of humiliation, the same feeling he'd experienced in dozens of job interviews over the past year. The casual dismissal based purely on age. The assumption that gray hair meant obsolete brain. But this was different. This wasn't just another job. This was HIS creation. James, he said, pulling out another document from his briefcase, I have the original partnership agreement. The one that states no major corporate restructuring can occur without unanimous board approval. My signature and my vote was required for the 2001 changes. I never gave it. Jennifer snatched the document, reviewed it quickly, and whispered something to James. His face darkened. That agreement was superseded by the 1999 bylaws amendment, which I also didn't vote for. You weren't at the meeting because I wasn't informed of the meeting. You were on leave? A leave doesn't suspend my rights as a shareholder? The argument was getting heated. James's lawyers were conferring urgently. Derek was on his phone, probably calling more senior management. Madison spoke up nervously. Should I call actual police? Like, real police? No, Jennifer said quickly. That would create a scene. She turned to Robert. Mr. Chen, let's be reasonable. Even if, and I emphasize, if you have some legitimate claim to historical shares, pursuing this will take years of litigation. You'll spend everything you have on legal fees. You'll lose in the end because we have unlimited resources and you have, what, a cracked briefcase and some old papers. I have the truth. The truth? James laughed. The truth is that you're a washed-up has-been trying to cash in on a company you abandoned. The truth is that I built this empire with my bare hands while you were changing bedpans. The truth is that nobody wants you involved in this company. He gestured to the crowd. Show of hands. Who thinks Robert Chen should be given control of Apex Innovations? Not a single hand went up. See? Democracy has spoken. Now go home, Robert, while you still have some dignity left. Robert stood there surrounded by hundreds of employees, all looking at him with expressions ranging from pity to contempt. The live stream was probably being watched by thousands now. His humiliation was complete and public, but he didn't move, because he had one more card to play. One piece of information that would detonate like a bomb in the middle of their smug superiority. James, he said quietly, do you remember why I named the company Chun Technologies? Because it was your ego trip? I don't know, Robert. I don't care. I named it after my grandfather, Chun Wei, the man who immigrated from Taiwan in 1949 with nothing but a dream and a work ethic. The man who taught me that your word is your bond, that integrity matters more than money, and that you never steal from the people who trust you. That's very touching, but my grandfather also taught me to document everything, every meeting, every agreement, every promise. Robert reached into his briefcase one more time, but this time he didn't pull out old documents. He pulled out a small digital recorder. This is from January 5th, 2000. A conversation between you and me, James. Right before I went on leave. He pressed play. James's voice, 23 years younger but unmistakable, came through the tiny speaker. Robert, I swear on everything I hold sacred, your shares will be protected. You built this company. When you're ready to come back, everything will be waiting for you. You have my word. Robert's voice responded. And if something happens to me, if I can't come back, then your shares go to your estate, to Margaret. This is your company, Robert. Nothing will change that. The lobby went silent. Absolutely completely silent. Every face had gone pale. James looked like he'd been slapped. That ... double quotes Jennifer started, then stopped. That recording is completely legal. California is a one-party consent state for recordings. And this recording proves that James Hartley explicitly promised to protect my ownership stake, acknowledged that the company was mine, and committed fraud when he restructured without my consent. James was shaking. Robert, that was taken out of context. There's 3 hours of recordings, James. Every promise you made, every assurance, every time you called yourself the steward of my company until I returned, all preserved, all admissible in court. Jennifer was frantically typing on her phone. Derek had gone white as a sheet. The crowd of employees was utterly stunned. Double quotes, James could barely speak. You've been planning this. You let me. You let all of us mock you, humiliate you, so I could prove that nothing has changed. 23 years ago, you saw me as someone to use. Today, you saw me as someone to discard. Either way, you never saw me as a person. You saw me as an obstacle. Robert walked slowly toward James, his old body now seeming to carry immense weight. I came here hoping you'd do the right thing. That maybe, after all these years, you'd have developed a conscience. But you didn't even recognize me at first, did you? You forgot what I looked like because I didn't matter to you. I was just the old founder whose name you erased from the company history. Robert, we can work something out. No, we can't. Robert's voice was steel, because this isn't about money anymore. This is about justice. You stole my company. You rewrote history to make yourself the hero. You got rich off my work, my ideas, my sacrifice. He turned to face the crowd, his voice rising. 23 years ago, I created something beautiful. A company built on innovation, integrity, and the belief that technology should serve people, not the other way around. And this man turned it into exactly what I feared it would become. A soulless corporation that values youth over wisdom, profit over principles, and ego over ethics. The room was mesmerized. The live stream had thousands of viewers now, so yes, I'm old. Yes, I've been gone. Yes, I chose my wife over my career, and I'd make that same choice 1,000 times over because love matters more than stock prices, but I'm still here. I'm still the majority shareholder, and I'm taking back what's mine. He pulled out one final document. This is a notice of shareholder action. As of this moment, I am exercising my rights as majority owner to call an emergency board meeting. All executive decisions made in the past 23 years without proper shareholder approval are hereby challenged. And James Hartley ... He looked directly at the man who'd stolen his legacy. You're fired. The lobby exploded in chaos. The conference room on the 47th floor felt like a tomb. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but nobody was looking at the skyline. Every eye was on Robert Chen, who sat at the head of the table in the chair that had once been his. The board had assembled an emergency session. 8 members, all looking various degrees of uncomfortable, angry, or terrified. James sat at the opposite end, flanked by 3 lawyers who were frantically reviewing documents. Jennifer Blackwell, the chief counsel, spoke first. Mr. Chen, before we proceed, I need to state for the record that this meeting is highly irregular. Proper notice wasn't given. I'm invoking emergency shareholder powers under Section 7(3) of the original corporate bylaws, which were never properly superseded. As majority shareholder, I have the right to call immediate board meetings in cases of corporate malfeasance or fraud. Fraud is a very serious accusation, Jennifer said coldly. So is stealing a company. One of the board members, an older man named Philip Stern, who'd been with the company since 1995, cleared his throat. Robert, I have to say, I'm shocked you're alive. We were told you'd passed away. Around 2005, I think? James said there was a car accident. I'm very much alive, Philip. And there was no car accident. That was a lie. All eyes turned to James, whose face had gone from red to ashen. I didn't... there was confusion. Quote, we couldn't reach you. We assumed you assumed nothing. You lied, deliberately, to steal my company. Another board member, a woman in her 50s named Diane Watkins, spoke up. Mr. Chen, can I ask? Why now? Why wait 23 years? If what you're saying is true, why not come back sooner? It was the question Robert had been expecting, the question that required him to open the most painful wound of his life. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a photograph. Even from across the table, they could see it was old, faded. He placed it on the table facing them. That's Margaret, my wife. Taken in 1999, right before her diagnosis. The photo showed a beautiful woman in her early 40s, smiling at the camera with bright, intelligent eyes. Her arm was around Robert, who looked so much younger, so much more alive. We met in college, MIT, 1982. She was studying neuroscience. I was in computer engineering. We used to argue about whether the brain or the computer was more complex. She always won. A sad smile crossed his face. We got married in 1985. Started the company 2 years later. She wasn't officially a founder, but she should have been. Every major decision, every strategic choice I made with her input. She understood technology better than most engineers I knew. He pulled out another photo, Margaret holding a baby. We tried for years to have children. Finally, in 1991, we succeeded. Lily, our daughter, she was perfect. Past tense. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Lily was 5 when Margaret started showing the first symptoms. Forgetting where she put her keys. Missing appointments. Small things. We thought it was just stress from running the company, raising a child. But it got worse. Robert's hands trembled slightly as he pulled out more photos. A timeline of deterioration. The diagnosis came in January 2000. Early onset Alzheimer's. Aggressive form. The doctor said she had maybe 10 years, probably less. She was 42 years old. Diane's hand went to her mouth. Even James looked uncomfortable. The disease moves differently in younger people, faster, more cruel. Within 6 months, she couldn't remember our daughter's name. Within a year, she didn't recognize me half the time. Within 2 years, she needed full-time care. Robert, Philip said softly, we had no idea. You had no idea because James didn't tell you. I did tell him. I explained everything when I asked for the temporary leave. I showed him the medical reports. I asked him, begged him to hold things together while I took care of my family. He looked directly at James. And you looked me in the eye and promised, swore on your mother's grave, you said, that you'd protect everything I'd built. James couldn't maintain eye contact. But it wasn't temporary for you, was it? It was an opportunity. Robert pulled out a stack of documents. 3 months after I left, you started the restructuring process. 6 months later, you'd renamed the company. Within a year, you'd convinced the board I was never coming back. And within 2 years, you'd fabricated the story about my death. I thought you were as good as dead, James said weakly. You'd disappeared completely. Never returned calls. Never came to meetings. For all we knew, I was in Portland, James. The address I gave you. The phone number one provided. I sent quarterly emails updating you on Margaret's condition and asking about the company. Every single one went unanswered. Because you had me blocked. He pulled out printed emails. I have copies, all saved, all time-stamped. 147 emails over 10 years. Not a single response. Jennifer was frantically taking notes. The other lawyers looked like they wanted to disappear. Why Portland? Diane asked gently. Margaret's sister lived there. She helped with care. And the house we found had a garden. Margaret loved gardens. Even when she couldn't remember my name. She'd smile when I wheeled her outside to see the roses. His voice cracked slightly. Several board members looked away. Lily was 9 when we moved. She had to leave her school, her friends. She had to watch her mother forget her. Do you know what that does to a child? To love someone who can't remember loving you back? Robert pulled out another photo. A teenage girl sitting beside a wheelchair holding the hand of a woman who stared blankly at nothing. Lily was 17 when Margaret stopped speaking entirely. 18 when she stopped recognizing anyone at all. The doctors called it end stage. I called it hell. The room was silent except for the soft sound of someone crying. It was Diane. I spent every day caring for Margaret, feeding her, bathing her, reading to her even though she couldn't understand the words, showing her photos of our life together, hoping something might spark recognition. Nothing ever did, but I did it anyway because I loved her, because she was my wife, because that's what love means. He looked around the table. I didn't abandon this company. I chose something more important. I chose my family. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Then why come back at all? James asked, his voice hoarse. If family was so important, why not just let the company go? Move on with your life. Because of Lily, the name hung in the air. Robert's hands shook as he pulled out one more photograph, but he didn't place it on the table. He held it close to his chest. Margaret passed away in November 2023, 14 months ago. After the funeral, I went through her things. Found journals she'd kept before the disease took her completely. Entries from the early days when she could still write. He opened a worn leather journal, his voice barely above a whisper as he read. If I forget everything else, I want Robert to know. He built something beautiful. Not just the company, a legacy. A way to make technology serve people, not enslave them. Don't let them corrupt it. Don't let them turn it into something hollow. Promise me you'll protect what we built together. Tears were streaming down Robert's face now. She wrote that in 2001, right after James took over. And she could sense something was wrong even through the fog of the disease. She made me promise. Robert ... double quotes Philip started. And Lily, Robert continued, his voice breaking completely. Lily had to watch her mother disappear. Had to give up her teenage years to help me care for someone who didn't know her. Had to put her own life on hold. He finally placed the last photo on the table. A beautiful young woman in a graduation gown standing beside Robert. She had Margaret's eyes. She graduated from University of Oregon in 2009, psychology degree, wanted to work with Alzheimer's patients, help other families like ours. She was 22, brilliant, kind, everything Margaret and I dreamed she'd be, past tense again. 3 months after graduation, she was driving to a job interview at a care facility in Seattle. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel, crossed the median, hit her head on. Diane gasped. Another board member covered his mouth. She died instantly. The police said she didn't suffer. The conference room was thick with grief. Even James looked stricken. So I lost them both. Within 4 years, I lost everything that mattered. My wife to a disease that stole her piece by piece, and my daughter to a random, senseless accident. Robert wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I spent the next 10 years barely functioning. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. Some days I couldn't remember why I was still alive. But every time I thought about ending it, I'd remember Margaret's journal, her plea to protect what we built. He looked directly at James. And then I'd remember your promise, your oath, your betrayal. I didn't know, James said, and for the first time he sounded genuine. About your daughter. About any of this. Robert, I had no idea. You didn't ask. Didn't care. You just saw an opportunity and took it. Philip stood up, his face red. James, is this true? You knew Robert's wife had Alzheimer's and you still restructured the company? It was complicated. The company was struggling. We needed to make fast decisions. I couldn't wait indefinitely for Robert to come back. So you stole it, Diane said flatly. You took advantage of a man whose family was falling apart. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Another board member. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you committed fraud. Multiple counts. Securities fraud. Wire fraud. Conspiracy. Jennifer tried to regain control. Let's not throw around legal terms until we've fully reviewed. I've reviewed enough, Philip said. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my personal attorney. If what Robert is saying is true, and those recordings are authentic, then this entire board has been operating under false pretenses for 2 decades. Philip, don't be hasty, James started. Hasty? Hasty? Philip exploded. You told us Robert was dead. You showed us death certificates. They were from public records of a different Robert Chen. Coincidence. I genuinely thought, bullshit. Diane slammed her hand on the table. You knew exactly what you were doing, and we helped you. God, we're all complicit in this. Marcus stood as well. I'm resigning. Effective immediately. I won't be part of this. Marcus, wait. James was panicking now. We can fix this. Robert, we can make this right. A settlement. Generous compensation. We'll put you on the board, give you an advisory role. I don't want an advisory role, Robert said quietly. I want my company back. That's impossible. We're publicly traded now. Shareholders, investors, thousands of employees depending on us, depending on you, or depending on the lie you've been telling. Jennifer jumped in. Mr. Chun, even if everything you're saying is true, unwinding 23 years of corporate structure would be catastrophic. Stock prices would crash, lawsuits from investors, regulatory investigations, people would lose their jobs, their retirement savings. Maybe they should have thought about that before building an empire on fraud. You'd destroy thousands of innocent people to get revenge, James challenged. I'd expose the truth to honor my wife's memory and my daughter's sacrifice. The statement hung in the air like a sword. Robert stood slowly, his old body aching, but his voice strong. I gave up everything for my family, my career, my company, my future. Can I do it again? But you took advantage of that sacrifice. You built your success on my tragedy. And then you had the audacity to erase me from history, to tell everyone you were the genius, you were the founder, you built this from nothing. He walked around the table, stopping at the window overlooking the city. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not the stolen money. It's not even the stolen company. It's that my daughter never got to see what her mother and I built. Because you'd already rewritten the story. When she Googled Chun Technologies for a school project in 2005, she found nothing. When she searched for her father's accomplishments, she found James Hartley instead. Robert turned back to face them. She asked me once, Dad, did you ever do anything important? Because there was no record, no legacy, no proof that I'd ever mattered. His voice broke completely, and I couldn't even explain it to her because I was so deep in grief, so lost in caring for Margaret, that I didn't have the strength to fight back. I chose her over my ego. I chose love over legacy. Diane was openly crying now. Philip looked devastated. But then I found Margaret's journals, and I realized this isn't about me. It's about honoring what she wanted, what she dreamed we'd build together, a company that had values, that cared about people, that use technology to help, not exploit. He looked around the room. Is that what Apex Innovations has become? Or did you turn it into everything we feared? Silence. Finally, Philip spoke. Robert, what do you want? Really want? Robert returned to his seat at the head of the table. I want the truth told. I want the company history corrected. I want Chen Technologies acknowledged as the foundation of Apex Innovations. I want Margaret and Lily's names memorialized somewhere in this company, Jennifer prompted. And I want James removed as CEO. Permanently. James shot to his feet. You can't. I can. I'm the majority shareholder. And I have recordings of you committing fraud. So unless you want criminal charges, I suggest you accept what's coming. The board will fight you, James said desperately. The shareholders will fight you. You're one old man against $1 billion machine. I'm one old man who has nothing left to lose, Robert corrected. You can't threaten me with money. Can't threaten me with reputation. Can't threaten me with anything because everything I loved is already gone. But I can threaten you with the truth. And the truth is your entire empire is built on lies. Jennifer was typing frantically on her laptop. Mr. Chen, if you go public with this, we'll counter with what? More lies? Robert pulled out a USB drive. I have 23 years of documentation. Every email I sent that went unanswered. Every attempt to contact the company that was blocked. Recordings of James promising to protect my shares. Evidence of the fraudulent restructuring. All backed up, all authenticated, all ready for court. He placed the USB drive on the table. But I don't want to destroy the company. I want to save it. From him, all eyes turned to James, who stood there like a man watching his entire world collapse. I built this, he said weakly. For 23 years, I poured my life into this company. I made it what it is. You stole it, Robert interrupted quietly. And deep down, you've always known it. That's why you erased my name from the history. That's why you fabricated my death. Because you couldn't stand the idea that someone might discover the truth. James sat down heavily, all the fight draining from him. For the first time since Robert had known him, he looked old. What happens now? Philip asked. Robert pulled out a formal document. This is a shareholder resolution. It calls for 1. Immediate termination of James Hartley as CEO. 2. Correction of all company historical records to acknowledge Chen Technologies as the predecessor company. 3. Creation of the Margaret and Lily Chen Memorial Foundation, funded by company profits to support Alzheimer's research and care facilities. 4. My restoration as chairman of the board. You want to run the company? Diane asked, surprised. No, I want to guide it. I want to make sure it becomes what Margaret dreamed it could be. And then I want to retire knowing I kept my promise to her. Jennifer was shaking her head. This will trigger massive legal battles. SEC investigations. Shareholder lawsuits against the board only if you fight it, Robert said. If you accept the truth, we can control the narrative. Announce it as a founder returning to guide the company into a new era. Spin it as innovation meets experience. Make it a story of redemption instead of fraud. And if we don't, James asked bitterly, then I release everything to the press. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. And I let the courts decide, which will take years, cost millions, and destroy the company's reputation forever. The choice was clear. Cooperate or face annihilation. Philip spoke first. I vote yes on the resolution. All provisions. Diane, yes. Marcus, yes. One by one, the board members voted. Only James and his 2 closest allies voted no. 7-3. The resolution passed. Robert had won. But the victory felt hollow as he looked at the photo of Margaret and Lily, knowing they'd never see this moment. Meeting adjourned, he said quietly. James, you have until end of business Friday to clear your office. Security will escort you out. James stood, his face a mask of rage and defeat. You'll regret this, Robert. The company will fall apart without me. Maybe, but at least it will fall apart honestly. As the board members filed out, Diane approached Robert. I'm sorry. For what happened to your family. For not questioning James's story. We should have known better. You trusted him. That's not a crime. It is when it causes this much harm, after everyone left. Robert sat alone in the conference room holding the photo of his family. The city lights sparkled below, but he barely saw them. I did it, Margaret, he whispered. I kept my promise. I don't know if it was worth it, but I did it. In the reflection of the window, he could almost see her smiling. Almost. The next morning, Robert arrived at the Apex building to find it in chaos. Word had spread overnight. The live stream from the lobby confrontation had gone viral. 10 million views and counting. News outlets were camped outside. Employees were gathering in worried clusters. The stock price had dropped 15% on rumors of internal turmoil. But this time, when Robert walked through the lobby, there was no mockery. There was silence. Madison, the receptionist, stood as he approached. Her eyes were red from crying. "Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry. For yesterday. For everything I said. I didn't know. It's all right, Madison. It's not all right." She was crying openly now. "You lost your wife and your daughter, and we treated you like garbage. I treated you like garbage. I laughed at you." Other employees were gathering, many with similar expressions of shame and regret. Derek, the director of operations who'd been so cruel the day before, pushed through the crowd. "Mr. Chen, please. I need to apologize. I was horrible to you. I said unforgivable things. You did. I have a grandmother. She's 78. She raised me. And if someone treated her the way I treated you, double quotes, his voice broke. I'm so ashamed." More employees came forward. "I'm sorry for filming you. I'm sorry for laughing. I'm sorry for the comments I posted. I'm sorry for assuming you didn't matter." Robert looked at all of them, these young people who'd been so cruel just 24 hours ago, now genuinely devastated by what they'd done. "I accept your apologies," he said quietly, "but I need you all to learn something from this." They waited, hanging on his words. Age is not a disability. Experience is not obsolescence. And someone's appearance tells you nothing about their value. Every person who walks through that door, old, young, well-dressed, poorly dressed, deserves basic respect. Not because of what they might secretly be, but because they're human. Madison wiped her eyes. "I'll never forget this. I promise." "Good. Because the company's going to change starting today. No more age discrimination in hiring. No more culture fit interviews that exclude anyone over 40. No more job postings that say digital native or recent graduate is code for young only." Derek nodded vigorously. "I'll personally oversee the policy changes. Whatever you want implemented. I want a company that values wisdom as much as energy, that understands a team works best when it has multiple generations working together, that respects what elders can teach as much as what youth can innovate." The crowd was listening with an intensity that bordered on religious fervor. Robert made his way to the executive floor, where an even bigger surprise awaited. James's office now had been cleared. But sitting in the waiting area was a group of people Robert didn't expect to see, the original founding team from Chen Technologies. Philip Stern was there, along with two others, Linda Morrison and David Park, all now in their 60s and 70s, all looking emotional. Linda stood, tears already flowing. "We didn't know. We had no idea you were alive. James told us you died," David added. "Said there was documentation, death certificates. So we believed him." Philip shook his head. "We should have questioned it. Should have tried to contact Margaret, reach out to your family, but we just accepted it. And for that I am profoundly sorry." Robert embraced each of them. These were his friends, his original partners, people who'd built Chen Technologies alongside him. "I don't blame you for believing him. James is a convincing liar," was Linda corrected. Past tense. "He's done." They gathered in the conference room, the four original founders of Chen Technologies reunited for the first time in over 2 decades. "Tell us about Margaret," Linda said softly. "Please, we loved her." So Robert told them everything. The diagnosis, the decline, the years of care. Lily's death, the decade of grief. His voice broke multiple times, but his old friend sat with him through every painful memory. When he finished, David was wiping his eyes. "She loved you so much. Even when we were working 100-hour weeks, she never complained. Just brought us food, reminded us to sleep. She was the heart of the company," Linda agreed. James never understood that. He thought it was all about the technology. But Margaret knew it was about the people. "That's what I want to restore," Robert said. "The values she believed in, the mission we started with." Philip nodded. "We're with you. Whatever you need, I need you back. All of you. Linda, I want you as Chief Operations Officer. David, Chief Technology Officer. Philip, you're already on the board. I want you as Vice Chairman." "Robert," David said carefully, "we're old. I'm 71. Linda's 68. Philip, 74. Are you sure you want a leadership team where the average age is 70? "I'm sure, because you remember why we started this company, and you're not going to repeat James's mistakes." That afternoon, Robert called an all-hands meeting. Every employee, over 2,000 people, crammed into the main auditorium or joined via video link. The murmur of conversation died when Robert walked onto the stage. He looked out at the sea of young faces, most of them afraid, confused, uncertain about the future. "My name's Robert Chen," he began. "Yesterday, many of you met me for the first time. Today, I want to tell you who I really am." The room was silent. I built this company in 1987 with 3 friends and a dream. We believed technology could make the world better. Not just more efficient, but more human. We believed businesses had a responsibility to their communities, their employees, their values. He paused, letting that sink in. Over time, that vision got lost. The company I built became something else. Something that valued profit over people, youth over wisdom, speed over sustainability. That's not your fault. You were hired into that culture. You learned to value what James Hartley valued. A few uncomfortable shifts in the audience. But starting today, things change. We're going back to the original mission. Technology that serves humanity. Which means this company will serve all of humanity, not just the young, not just the wealthy, not just the well-connected. Applause started slowly, then built. I'm bringing back the original leadership team. Yes, they're old. Yes, they use reading glasses and have gray hair. Yes, they probably can't code as fast as you can. But they built the foundation you're standing on. And they're going to help us build something even better. More applause. I'm also implementing new policies. Effective immediately. No age restrictions in hiring. Mandatory diversity training that includes age discrimination, mentorship programs pairing junior and senior employees, and the creation of the Margaret and Lily Chen Foundation, which will dedicate 10% of company profits to Alzheimer's research and support. The applause was thunderous now. But here's what I need from you, Robert continued. I need you to question your assumptions. When you see someone with gray hair, don't assume they're incompetent. When you meet someone who graduated before you were born, don't assume they're irrelevant. Experience is not the enemy of innovation. It's the foundation innovation builds on. A young developer stood up in the back. Mr. Chen, can I ask a question? Please. Yesterday I was one of the people laughing at you. I posted on Twitter that you were a delusional boomer. I'm so ashamed. How do we make this right? Robert smiled sadly. You learn, you grow. You become the person who never makes that mistake again. And when you see someone else being dismissed because of their age, you stand up for them. Another employee stood. What if we're afraid we're not good enough? Like if you're bringing in all these experienced people, will there still be room for us? There's always room for talent, regardless of age. But understand, you're not being replaced. You're being mentored. The seniors we're bringing in aren't here to take your jobs. They're here to teach you how to do your jobs better. A woman in her 30s raised her hand. Mr. Chen, I'm 35. I've been told I'm too old for certain projects because they want fresh perspectives. Will that change? Absolutely. 35 is not old, 45 is not old, 55 is not old. And even if you're 75, you still have value. Age is just a number. Contribution is what matters. The applause went on for minutes. After the meeting, Robert returned to his office to find an unexpected visitor. James Hartley sat in one of the chairs, looking smaller somehow. Defeated. I'm supposed to be gone by Friday, he said, but I needed to talk to you first. Robert sat across from him. I'm listening. I want to say I'm sorry. For everything. For lying about you being dead. For stealing the company. For erasing your history. James's voice was hollow. But the truth is, I don't know if I'm really sorry or if I'm just sorry I got caught. The honesty was startling. I convinced myself I deserved it, James continued. That I'd worked harder, sacrificed more, earned the right to be the founder. I rewrote history so many times in my head that I started believing my own lies. Why? Robert asked. Why not just be honest? You did build the company into something huge. You could have been proud of that without erasing me. Because it wasn't enough, James said bitterly. Being the CEO who grew the company wasn't enough. I wanted to be the visionary founder, the genius who started it all. I wanted to be you. Robert sat back, surprised. I was always in your shadow, James admitted. Even after you left. Investors would ask, whatever happened to Robert Chen? Journalists would research the company history and find your name. I couldn't stand it, so I erased you. Made myself the origin story. And it worked. Until you came back. They sat in silence for a moment. I don't expect forgiveness, James said. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, what you built was brilliant. The original Chen Technologies was revolutionary, and I did corrupt it. I turned it into exactly what you feared. A soulless corporation obsessed with growth at any cost. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked me yesterday why I did it. And I think you deserve a real answer. James stood to leave. For what it's worth, Margaret was right about you. You were too good for this industry. Too principled. That's why I knew I could take advantage of you. He walked to the door, then paused. Your daughter, Lily. I remember her. She came to the office once when she was little. Maybe 7 or 8. She drew me a picture of a robot. Said when she grew up, she was going to build robots that helped sick people. Robert's throat tightened. I put that drawing in a frame on my desk. Kept it there for years. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me remembered what we were supposed to be about, what she represented, what happened to it. I threw it away during the 2001 rebrand. Didn't fit the new aesthetic. James left without another word. Robert sat alone in the office that was finally rightfully his again. The city stretched out below, full of people living their lives, unaware that a small act of justice had just taken place in this tower. He pulled out his phone and opened it to the photo of Margaret and Lily. I confronted him, he said to the image. Made him admit what he did. It didn't feel as good as I thought it would, but I did it for you. His phone buzzed. An email from Linda. Press conference scheduled for tomorrow 10 a.m. We're telling the true story of Chen Technologies. Margaret and Lily will be honored properly. Get some rest. Tomorrow's a new beginning. Robert smiled through tears. A new beginning. At 65. Proof that it's never too late. Never too late to fight for what's right. Never too late to honor those you've lost. Never too late to reclaim your legacy. 6 months later, the Apex Innovations building looked different now. Subtle changes, but meaningful ones. In the lobby where Robert had once been mocked and dismissed, there was now a permanent installation, a timeline of the company's history. Starting with the founding of Chen Technologies in 1987, photos of the original team Robert, Philip, Linda, David, and prominently featured Margaret as strategic advisor and inspiration. Next to it is a separate memorial, the Margaret and Lily Chen Foundation wall, with photos of both women and a running tally of the foundation's impact. $50 million donated to Alzheimer's research, 12 care facilities, upgraded 500 families. Receiving support, 3,000 caregivers trained. Madison, the receptionist, gave tours to visitors now, telling the story with pride instead of shame. This is where Mr. Chen stood when we mocked him, she'd say, pointing to the exact spot. I was one of the worst. I laughed at him, dismissed him, treated him like he was nothing. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But he forgave us. And now we make sure nobody who comes through these doors ever experiences what he did. The company had transformed in ways that went far beyond leadership changes. The new hiring policy had resulted in 150 employees, over 50 being brought in across all departments. The youngest was 52. The oldest was 17, Nina, a retired engineer who'd pioneered early internet protocols and now mentored the cloud infrastructure team. The results were undeniable. Productivity up 35%, innovation patents filed up 50%. Employee satisfaction up 60%, turnover down 45%, but the numbers didn't capture the real change. It was cultural, philosophical, human. Derek, the director of operations who'd been so cruel to Robert, had become the company's most vocal advocate for age diversity. I was an asshole, he'd say openly in interviews. I judged a man by his gray hair and missed the fact that he was a genius. That lesson cost me my dignity, but it gave me wisdom. Now I make sure we never lose talent because of arbitrary age prejudice. He'd implemented a mentorship program pairing every employee under 30 with someone over 50. The results were transformative. Young developers learned debugging techniques from veterans who'd survived the dot-com crash. Senior engineers learned new frameworks from recent graduates. The exchange was symbiotic, beautiful. In conference room A, where the board had voted to restore Robert's ownership, a different meeting was taking place. Robert sat at the head of the table, but this time surrounded by familiar faces: Linda, David, Philip, and several new board members carefully chosen for expertise and character, not connections. Revenue projections for Q4, Linda reported, are up 40% from last year. The market responded positively to our leadership change once they understood the full story. Stock price? Robert asked. Fully recovered from the initial drop. Actually up 25% from pre-announcement levels. Investors like the experience meets innovation narrative, David added, and our talent recruitment has become significantly easier. We're getting applications from people who specifically want to work for a company that values experience. Several competitors are trying to copy our model. Good, Robert said. The more companies that stop discriminating by age, the better. Philip pulled up a presentation. Now for the foundation update. The Margaret and Lily Chen Foundation has exceeded all projections. We've partnered with 15 research institutions on Alzheimer's studies, 3 promising drug trials in progress. And the care facilities we've funded are serving families across 12 states. Robert felt his chest tighten with emotion. Margaret would be so proud. There's more, Philip continued. We've been contacted by other tech companies wanting to create similar foundations honoring family members lost to illness. Your story has inspired a movement, A soft knock on the door. Madison peeked in. "Mr. Chen? There's someone here who insists on seeing you. She says it's personal." "Who?" She wouldn't give her name. "But she's older, maybe 70. She's been crying in the lobby for 10 minutes. Robert excused himself and went down to find an elderly woman with silver hair sitting in the waiting area, clutching a worn photo album. "Mr. Chen?" She stood when she saw him, her voice shaking. "My name is Dorothy Park. I was David Park's sister." David's sister. Robert remembered her vaguely from the early days. "What can I do for you, Dorothy?" "I needed to thank you. And, to give you this." She held out the photo album with trembling hands. "These are pictures from the early days of Chen Technologies. From 1987 through 1999, I found them in my attic last week when your story went viral." Robert opened the album. His breath caught. Photos he'd never seen. Margaret at a company party laughing. Lily as a baby being passed around between engineers who took turns babysitting when Robert and Margaret worked late. The original team celebrating their first major contract. And one photo that made him gasp. Margaret, heavily pregnant, standing in front of a whiteboard covered in code, making a presentation to the team. She was brilliant, Dorothy said. Everyone knew the company's success was as much hers as yours. She never wanted credit, but we all knew. I didn't know these existed. David kept them. He wanted to preserve the memories of what the company really was before James changed everything. But he lost touch with you and couldn't give them to you. When he passed away last year, I found them in his things. David was dead. Robert hadn't known. The grief hit him fresh. "I'm sorry," Dorothy continued. "He wanted to reach out so many times, but James had told everyone you were dead. David suspected it was a lie, but he couldn't prove it. So he kept these photos, hoping someday they'd find their way back to you." She pulled out one more item, a handwritten letter in an envelope yellowed with age. "This is from David, written in 2010, right after he finally confirmed you were alive but couldn't find you. He wanted you to know the truth if you ever came back." Robert opened the letter with shaking hands. "Robert, if you're reading this, it means you've returned. And it means I've likely passed on. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to welcome you back. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder against James. I suspected what he was doing, but was too cowardly to challenge him. I need you to know none of us forgot what you built. None of us forgot Margaret's contributions. We just didn't have the courage to defend your legacy against James's ambition. The photos Dorothy has given you, guard them. They're proof of what we really were. A family, not a corporation. A mission, not a business. Margaret understood that better than any of us. Tell Lily when you see her that the robot picture she drew still inspires me. I try to build robots that help people just like she dreamed. It's my small way of honoring her vision. I'm sorry I failed you. I hope you can forgive me. Your friend always, David." Robert was crying openly now. The lobby had gone quiet. Employees had gathered at a respectful distance, watching. "He didn't know," Dorothy said gently. "About Lily. He thought she was still alive. When the news reported your story 6 months ago and mentioned she'd passed. Robert, I've never seen my brother's name in an obituary correction, but if I could, I would have added died of a broken heart as a cause of death." Robert embraced Dorothy, both of them crying for losses compounded over decades. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for bringing me these." That evening, Robert sat in his office with the photo album open, seeing Margaret alive again in these frozen moments. Seeing Lily as a baby, innocent and full of potential. Linda found him there hours later. "Robert, it's 10 p.m. You should go home." "Look at this one," he said, pointing to a photo of Margaret holding Lily while simultaneously reviewing code on a printout. She was everything. Mother, advisor, genius. And James aced her completely. Linda sat beside him, studying the photos. Not completely, not anymore. The new company history has her featured prominently. Every employee now knows her name. The foundation ensures she'll never be forgotten. It's not enough. Maybe not, but it's something. And Robert... Linda hesitated. "I need to show you something." She pulled out her tablet and opened a video file. "This came in today. From a woman named Sarah Chun, no relation to you. But she was inspired by your story." Robert watched as a middle-aged woman appeared on screen, sitting beside an elderly woman in a care facility. "Mr. Chun, you don't know me, but I wanted to thank you. This is my mother. She has Alzheimer's. For the past 3 years, I've been trying to care for her while working full-time, and I was drowning. Then I heard about your foundation." The woman's voice broke. "We got accepted into one of the care programs you fund. My mother is getting professional care. I still visit every day, but I'm not doing it alone anymore. You saved us. Both of us. And I wanted you to know what you did for your wife, what you're doing for others now. It matters. It matters so much, the video ended. Robert sat in silence, tears streaming down his face. There are hundreds of these, Linda said softly. Families writing to thank you. People sharing their own stories. Caregivers finding hope. You've created something that's helping thousands of people who were in the same situation you were. Margaret would love that. Margaret is that. The foundation carries her vision. Every life it touches is her legacy continuing. Robert closed the photo album gently, reverently. I need to do something else, something bigger. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that what happened to me, the discrimination, the dismissal, the assumption that age equals irrelevance happens to millions of people every day. And it's wrong. Fundamentally, morally wrong. What do you want to do about it? I want to create a movement. Not just at Apex, everywhere. 3 months later, the launch of the Experience Matters initiative made national news. Robert had used his restored wealth and platform to create a comprehensive program. 1. The Chen Pledge. A voluntary commitment for companies to eliminate age discrimination in hiring, implement multi-generational teams. Create mentorship programs pairing different age groups, track and report age diversity metrics within the first month. 150 companies signed on. Within 3 months, over 1,002. Legal Defense Fund, $100 million dedicated to fighting age discrimination lawsuits, offering free legal counsel to victims. Lobbying for stronger age discrimination laws, funding research on workplace ageism. 3. Retraining programs. Partnerships with universities to offer free technology courses for workers over 50. Provide career transition support. Create certification programs for encore careers. Fund entrepreneurship programs for older founders. 4. National campaign media blitz, including TV commercials showing older workers. Success stories, social media movement, #Experience Matters, documentary about Robert's story and the broader issue. Speaking tour with Robert, Linda, Philip, and David's recorded testimonials, the response was overwhelming. News outlets picked up the story. 60 Minutes did a feature, had invited Robert to speak. LinkedIn made him their Person of the Year for championing workplace diversity. But the most meaningful moment came at a small community center in Portland. Robert had returned to the city where he'd spent those painful years caring for Margaret. The local Alzheimer's Association had invited him to speak at a fundraiser. The room was packed with caregivers, people living the same hell he'd survived. Exhausted faces, worn hands, eyes that had cried too many tears. I know what you're going through, he began, his voice gentle. I know how it feels to watch someone you love disappear piece by piece, to have them look at you without recognition, to wonder if what you're doing matters. Heads nodded throughout the room. I'm here to tell you, it matters. Every day you show up, every meal you prepare, every hand you hold, it all matters. You are doing the most important work in the world. You are choosing love over convenience. You are honoring the dignity of someone who can't always honor yours in return. Woman in the front row was crying, but nobody sees it. Nobody values it. I had to quit my job to care for my husband. Now I can't get hired anywhere because I have a 5-year gap in my resume. I know, Robert said. I had a 23-year gap. And I was told I was too old, too out of touch, too irrelevant. But I wasn't, and neither are you. He pulled out a card and handed it to her. That's the direct line to our foundation's employment program. We partner with companies that specifically value caregiving experience. Because caregivers develop skills that most people never learn. Patience, problem solving under pressure, emotional resilience, time management in chaos. These aren't weaknesses. They're superpowers. The woman clutched the card like a lifeline. Another hand went up. An older man, probably in his 70s. Mr. Chen, my question is, how do you keep going? My wife passed last year after 15 years with dementia. I don't know what to do with myself now. Too old to work, too young to just give up, but I feel useless. Robert walked down from the podium and stood directly in front of the man. You're not useless. You're experienced. You survived something that breaks most people. You have wisdom that only comes from suffering. And the world needs that wisdom desperately. But who wants to hire a 74-year-old? I do, Robert said. The foundation's always looking for peer counselors, people who've been through caregiving and can support others going through it. You'd be paid part-time, flexible hours. But more importantly, you'd be giving purpose to your pain. The man's eyes filled with tears. You'd really hire me? I'd be honored to have you on the team. Spontaneous applause filled the room. After the event, a young woman approached Robert. She couldn't have been more than 25, but she had that familiar, exhausted look of a caregiver. Mr. Chen, I'm Amanda. I'm caring for my grandmother. She's only 68, but has early onset Alzheimer's, just like your wife did. I'm 24. All my friends are out starting careers, traveling, living their lives, and I'm changing my grandmother's diapers and trying to remember who she used to be. Her voice cracked. Everyone tells me I'm wasting my youth, that I should put her in a home and live my life. But I can't. She raised me. How do I just abandon her? Robert took both her hands in his. You don't. And you're not wasting your youth. You're investing it in love. That's never a waste. But what about my future? My career? I wanted to be a teacher, but you are a teacher. You're teaching everyone around you what real love looks like, what sacrifice means, what character is. Those lessons are more important than any classroom curriculum. But when she's gone, I'll be years behind my peers. No work experience, no. You'll have the most important experience there is. You'll know what truly matters. And trust me, that clarity is worth more than any resume. Amanda hugged him tightly, sobbing into his shoulder. Later that night, back at his hotel, Robert received an email from Derek, the director of operations who'd once tried to throw him out of his own building. Robert, you need to see this. The Experience Matters movement is spreading faster than we imagined. This week alone, 47 new companies signed the Chen Pledge. 1,200 older workers hired through our placement program, $5 million in donations to the foundation. 15 states considering new age discrimination laws. Harvard Business School creating new curriculum on multi-generational leadership. But the best part? Attached is a video from a high school in Ohio. Robert opened the attachment. A classroom full of teenagers appeared on screen, holding signs, "Our grandparents matter. Experience equals wisdom. Age is just a number. Don't waste talent because of birthdays," a young teacher spoke to the camera. We're teaching our students about ageism as part of our social justice curriculum. Mr. Chen's story opened their eyes to a form of discrimination they'd never considered. These kids are going to be the managers and CEOs of tomorrow. And they're learning now that age diversity makes teams stronger. Robert watched the entire video, his heart full. A text came in from Linda, "Turn on CNN, now." He switched on the television to see a panel discussion titled, "The Age Revolution, Robert Chen and the Future of Work." The host was interviewing various experts, but then cut to a surprise guest via satellite. It was Chio, the young HR manager from the Technova story, the startup where Marta had saved the company. He'd reached out to Robert months ago, inspired to share his own experience. "I made the same mistake Robert's company made," Chio said on national television. "I judged a 62-year-old woman by her appearance and almost cost my company everything. Marta Silveira saved us, and she taught me that my generation's arrogance about technology was blinding us to wisdom. Now I recruit specifically for age diversity, and my company is thriving because of it." The movement was spreading beyond anything Robert had imagined. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Chen? This is Patricia Knowles. I'm the CEO of Tech Venture Capital. We've never met, but I've been following your work closely. How can I help you, Ms. Knowles?" "I want to create a venture fund specifically for entrepreneurs over 50. Too many brilliant people with decades of experience can't get funding because investors are obsessed with young visionaries. I want to change that, and I want your guidance." "I'd be honored. There's more. I'm 63. I was forced out of my previous company 3 years ago because the board wanted younger leadership. I've been trying to get back in the game ever since. Your story gave me the courage to stop hiding my age and start leveraging it." "What happened?" "I raised $500 million for the fund in 6 weeks. Turns out limited partners were hungry for someone with actual experience managing their money, not a 25-year-old with a hoodie and a dream." Robert laughed. "That's wonderful. Mr. Chen, you didn't just save your company. You started a revolution, and I want to be part of it." After hanging up, Robert sat on the hotel balcony looking out at the Portland skyline. Somewhere in this city, he'd spent 15 years caring for Margaret. Somewhere here, Lily had grown from a child to a young woman. Somewhere here, he'd lost everything. And somehow, from that loss, something beautiful was growing. His phone buzzed again. An email from Madison, the receptionist. "Mr. Chen, my grandmother just got hired as a consultant at a marketing firm. She's 72 and has been unemployed for 8 years. They specifically recruited her because of her life experience and perspective. She called me crying. Said it's the first time in almost a decade someone has made her feel valuable. Thank you for changing the world. Thank you for changing her world." Madison Robert pulled out the photo album Dorothy had given him. Found the picture of Margaret presenting to the team while pregnant. Look what we started, my love, he whispered. Look what your vision became. His phone rang again. This time he recognized the number. Philip. Robert turned to page A1 of the New York Times website. Now, he pulled it up on his laptop. The headline read, "The Chen Effect. How One Man's Fight Against Age Discrimination is Transforming Corporate America." The article was extensive, detailing not just Robert's story but the ripple effects. Fortune 500 companies scrambling to diversify age demographics. Law firms overwhelmed with age discrimination cases thanks to the legal fund. Universities reporting surges in enrollment from students over 50. Entrepreneurship among older Americans up 40%. Multiple states passing strengthened age discrimination protections. But the most powerful part was the conclusion. Robert Chen didn't just reclaim his company. He reclaimed dignity for millions of workers who'd been cast aside simply for having the audacity to age. In a culture obsessed with youth, Chen reminded us that wisdom, experience, and perspective are not just valuable, they're irreplaceable. His wife Margaret and daughter Lily never lived to see this transformation, but in a way, they're at the heart of it. Chen's fight wasn't motivated by money or revenge. It was motivated by love for his family and love for the values they represented. In that sense, Margaret and Lily are still changing the world. Through Robert, through the foundation that bears their names, through every older worker who now has a chance they wouldn't have had before. Age discrimination is far from solved. But thanks to Robert Chen, the conversation has fundamentally shifted, and that shift may be his greatest legacy of all. Robert closed the laptop, overwhelmed. The video call came through. Linda, David's recorded message from before he died, and Philip, all on split screen. "We did it," Linda said, tears streaming. "Robert, we actually did it." "Margaret did it," Robert corrected. "We're just keeping our promise." Philip raised a glass. To Margaret, to Lily, to David, and to Robert for having the courage to fight when most people would have given up. They toasted across the screen, four old friends celebrating a victory that transcended business. "What's next?" Linda asked. Robert smiled. "Next, we keep going. We expand internationally, we fight harder. We don't stop until every person, regardless of age, is valued for who they are and what they can contribute. That's a big mission. It's what Margaret would want. It's what Lily would have championed if she'd lived. So we do it for them." After the call ended, Robert did something he hadn't done in years. He opened his laptop and started typing. Not an email, not a business plan, a letter. "Dear Margaret and Lily, I kept my promise. It took me longer than it should have, but I kept it. The company that tried to erase our legacy now celebrates it. The world that dismissed me as too old now understands that age is wisdom, not weakness. But more than that, I think I've finally understood what you were trying to teach me all along, Margaret. It was never about the company, it was about the impact. The lives we touch, the people we help, the world we make a little bit better. Lily, you wanted to build robots that help sick people. Through the foundation, we're helping sick people and the families who love them. It's not robots, sweetheart, but I think you'd approve. I miss you both every single day. Every victory feels hollow without you here to celebrate it. Every success is bittersweet because you're not here to see it, but I also feel you with me. In every decision, in every moment of courage, and every time I choose to keep fighting instead of giving up. You're not gone, you've just changed form. You're in the foundation, in the movement, in every older worker who gets a second chance, in every family that receives support, in every young person who learns that age diversity makes us stronger. I love you, I miss you, and I promise I'll keep fighting until my last breath, because that's what love does. It endures, it transforms, it changes the world. Asterisk forever yours, Robert. He saved the letter in a folder with hundreds of others he'd written over the years. Conversations with the dead, because sometimes the living need to speak to those who've passed. A notification popped up, the live stream of the Experience Matters conference starting in 10 minutes. Robert joined the video call to see thousands of participants logging in. Older workers sharing their stories. Young people asking how to support age diversity in their workplaces. Companies presenting their multi-generational initiatives. He was scheduled to give the closing remarks. When his turn came, he looked into the camera, seeing his aged face reflected back. Gray hair, wrinkles, age spots. All the markers that once made people dismiss him, now they were badges of honor. "Thank you all for being here," he began. 6 months ago, I walked into a building I'd built and was told I was too old to matter. Today, that building carries the names of the two women I loved most. And thousands of companies are learning the lesson I had to learn the hard way. Age is not a liability. It's an asset. He paused, letting that sink in. But this movement isn't about me. It's about every person who's been told they're too old to contribute. Every worker who's been forced out because of their birth certificate. Every entrepreneur who can't get funding because they're over 40. Every talented professional sitting at home wondering if their careers are over simply because they've lived. The chat was filling with testimonials, stories, thank yous. To all of you watching who are over 50, 60, 70 or beyond, you are not obsolete, you are not irrelevant. You are not past your prime, you are at the height of your powers. You've lived through recessions and booms, failures and successes. You've accumulated wisdom that can't be taught in any classroom. And the world desperately needs what you have to offer. More testimonials flooding in. To the young people watching, don't make the mistake of assuming you know more than your elders simply because you're comfortable with current technology. Technology changes every few years. Wisdom lasts a lifetime. Learn from those who've been where you're trying to go. To the companies watching, age diversity isn't charity. It's smart business. Teams that span generations outperform homogeneous teams. It's not opinion. It's data. If you're not actively recruiting and retaining older workers, you're leaving money and innovation on the table. He looked directly into the camera. This movement will continue long after I'm gone because it's bigger than any one person. It's about fundamental human dignity. About recognizing that every stage of life has value. About building a world where we don't discard people the moment they start showing gray hair. His voice grew stronger. So I'm asking you, all of you, to join me. Sign the Chen Pledge. Donate to the foundation. Fight age discrimination in your workplaces and communities. Hire that experienced candidate everyone else passed over. Give that older worker a chance to prove their worth, because I promise you, they will exceed your expectations. The chat was moving too fast to read now. Thousands of messages of support. Finally, to Margaret and Lily, who can't hear this but who inspire it all. Thank you. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. Thank you for giving me a purpose bigger than myself. Thank you for the love that sustains me even now. This is all for you. Everything. Always. He ended the call to thunderous virtual applause. His phone immediately rang. Unknown number again. Mr. Chen, this is Governor Martinez from New York. I've been watching your movement closely. I want to make New York the first state with comprehensive age discrimination protections. Will you help us draft the legislation? Absolutely. Another call. Mr. Chen, this is the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights. We're considering age discrimination as a formal human rights issue. Your work is instrumental. ... double quotes another. Mr. Chen, Google here. We want to implement your model company -wide ... The calls kept coming. The movement was unstoppable now. 1 year later, Robert Chen stood at the podium of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., about to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. At 66, he looked healthier than he had in years. The burden of grief, while never fully gone, had transformed into purpose. The president approached with the medal. Robert Chen has reminded America of a simple truth we too often forget, that experience matters, that age brings wisdom, that every generation has something to teach the next. Through his courage, his persistence, and his unwavering commitment to justice, he has transformed not just one company, but our entire national conversation about aging, work, and dignity. The medal was placed around his neck. The audience filled with policymakers, business leaders, and most importantly, dozens of older workers who'd been given second chances rose in standing ovation. But Robert's eyes were on the front row. There sat Linda, Philip, and Dorothy, David's sister, representing him. Madison, the receptionist who'd learned compassion. Derek, the operations director who'd learned humility. Marta Silvera from Technova, who'd flown in to support him. Patricia Knowles, the VC who'd created the fund for older entrepreneurs. And in the seat of honor, where family members typically sat, was an empty chair with a photo of Margaret and Lily. In his acceptance speech, Robert spoke slowly, choosing every word carefully. This medal doesn't belong to me alone. It belongs to every person who's been told they're too old to matter. Every worker who's been dismissed because of gray hair. Every entrepreneur who couldn't get funding because of their age. Every caregiver who sacrificed their career for love. He paused, emotion catching in his throat. It belongs to my wife, Margaret, who taught me that success without values is empty. And to my daughter, Lily, whose dream of helping people continues through the foundation that bears their names. A year ago, I walked into a building I'd built and was told I didn't belong there. Today, that building stands as a monument to what happens when we choose inclusion over prejudice, experience over ageism, wisdom over arrogance. But we're not done. Age discrimination still happens every day. Talented people are still being discarded simply for having lived. We have more work to do. He looked directly at the cameras broadcasting the ceremony. To every older person watching this who's been told they're obsolete, you're not. The world needs your wisdom now more than ever. Don't give up. Don't accept the lie that age equals irrelevance. Fight for your seat at the table, because you earned it. To every young person, honor those who came before you. Learn from them. Work alongside them. You'll be old someday too, and you'll want the same respect you're denying others now. To every employer, stop seeing age as a liability and start seeing it as the asset it truly is. The companies that figure this out first will dominate the next century. He held up the medal. This represents more than recognition. It represents a promise. It's the promise that America will no longer discard its elders. The promise that experience will be valued, not dismissed. The promise that every generation matters. Margaret used to say that a society's greatness is measured by how it treats those who can no longer produce in traditional ways. By that measure, we've been failing, but we're learning, slowly, painfully, but learning. His voice grew stronger, more passionate. Age is not a disease to be cured. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a natural, beautiful part of being human. Every wrinkle tells a story. Every gray hair represents a lesson learned. Every year lived adds depth and perspective that youth simply cannot provide. So yes, I'm old. I'm 66. My knees hurt. I need reading glasses. I can't code as fast as I used to. But I can see patterns young people miss. I can avoid mistakes I've already made. I can provide context and wisdom that only comes from living. That's not a weakness. That's a superpower. The audience was on its feet again. This movement, the Experience Matters movement, will outlive me. Because it's not built on one person. It's built on a truth that cannot be denied. Every age has value. Every generation has gifts. And together we're unstoppable. He looked at the photo of Margaret and Lily. I kept my promise. To you. To everyone who believed in what we started. The company that tried to erase our legacy now celebrates it. The world that dismissed experience now cherishes it. And it's only the beginning. After the ceremony, there was a private reception. Robert found himself surrounded by people wanting to share their stories. An 80-year-old woman, I went back to work at 78 because of you. Now I'm mentoring an entire team of engineers. They call me Code Grandma, and I love it. A middle-aged man. I was forced out at 55. Spent 3 years unemployed, depressed, feeling worthless. Your movement got me hired at a startup. I'm their chief strategy officer now. The young founders say my experience helps them avoid costly mistakes. A young woman. My grandmother was dying in a terrible care facility. Your foundation helped us move her somewhere better. She passed away 6 months ago, but those last months were filled with dignity and love. Thank you. Story after story. Life after life touched. But the moment that broke him came from an unexpected source. A teenager, maybe 17, approached nervously. Mr. Chen, my name is Alex. I'm trans. And I wanted to thank you for something you probably didn't even realize you did. Robert was confused. How did I help you? You showed me that society's assumptions about who we are based on how we look are wrong. That just because people see one thing doesn't mean that's the truth. That we have the right to be recognized for who we actually are, not who others assume we are. The kid was crying now. If you can fight to be seen as valuable despite your age, I can fight to be seen as valid despite my identity. You gave me courage, so thank you. Robert embraced the teenager. Thank you for teaching me that this movement is bigger than age. It's about seeing people fully, completely, without prejudice. As the evening wound down, Robert found a quiet moment alone on the balcony overlooking the Potomac. Linda joined him. How does it feel? She asked. Presidential medal. Movement that's changing the world. Margaret and Lily's names known internationally. It feels ... Godgrow paused. Robert paused, searching for the right word. Bittersweet. I'd trade it all to have them back. I know. But since I can't have them back, at least their legacy lives on. At least their values are spreading. At least they matter. Linda took his hand. They always mattered, Robert. You just made sure the world knew it. They stood in silence, watching the river flow. What's next? Linda finally asked. You've achieved everything you set out to do. The company is thriving. The foundation is massive. The movement is global. You could retire now. Actually retire. Robert smiled. Margaret never retired from caring. Lily never stopped dreaming. How can I retire from honoring them? So what then? Keep pushing. Keep fighting. Until every person, regardless of age, is valued. Until no one else has to walk into a building they built and be told they don't belong. Until experience is celebrated, not dismissed. That could take the rest of your life. Good, I can't think of a Better way to spend it. They went back inside to rejoin the celebration, but Robert paused at the door. On the wall was a timeline of the past year. 5,000 plus companies signed the Chen Pledge, 50,000 plus. Older workers hired through the program, $500 million raised for Alzheimer's research. 30 states passed stronger age discrimination laws. 15 countries adopted similar programs. 1 million plus caregivers supported at the bottom of the timeline. Someone had added a handwritten note. Because Robert Chen refused to be invisible, millions of others no longer have to be either. Robert touched the note gently, then pulled out his phone, opened the letter app where he kept his messages to Margaret and Lily. My loves, today I received a medal from the president, but the real medal was seeing all the lives we've touched. It's every person who feels valued now. Every older worker who got a second chance. Every family caring for someone with Alzheimer's who now has support. That's your legacy. Not mine. Yours. I'm tired. But I'm not done. Because you taught me that love doesn't end when someone dies. It transforms. It multiplies. It changes the world. And that's exactly what we're doing. Asterisk, until we meet again, Robert. He saved the letter and looked up at the ceiling, imagining Margaret and Lily somewhere beyond it, smiling. We did it, he whispered. We really did it. And somewhere in the universe, in whatever space the dead occupy, two souls who'd loved him completely smiled back. Because they knew the truth. Age had never been Robert's weakness. It had always been his strength. And now, finally, the world knew it too. 5 years later, Robert Chen passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 71. Heart failure, the doctors said. But those who knew him best said he simply finished his work. The funeral was broadcast internationally. Thousands attended in person. Millions watched online. But the true memorial wasn't the funeral. It was what happened next. In his will, Robert left specific instructions. His majority stake in Apex Innovations to be held in trust, with profits funding the foundation in perpetuity. His personal wealth split between Alzheimer's research and age discrimination legal defense, a requirement that Apex maintain its age diversity commitment forever, or forfeit the Chen family shares. But the most powerful clause was this: I do not want to be remembered as a businessman who got rich. I want to be remembered as a husband who kept his promise, a father who honored his daughter's dreams, and a human being who fought for others to be seen as fully human. If I achieved anything worth remembering, it was this. I proved that age is not an ending. It's a beginning. Every day lived adds value. Every year survived builds wisdom. Every wrinkle earned tells a story worth hearing. Margaret taught me that. Lily embodied it. I simply had the privilege of spreading their truth to the world. So when you remember me, don't remember the company I built or the fortune I made. Remember this: I was loved by extraordinary women, and I spent my final years making sure their love changed the world. That is the only legacy that matters. The Experience Matters movement continued without him. Linda took over leadership. Philip ran the foundation. New generations joined the fight. But every year on the anniversary of Robert's return to Apex, the day he walked into that lobby and was mocked, companies around the world observe Experience Appreciation Day. Employers honor their longest-serving workers. Young employees thank their senior mentors. Age discrimination cases are highlighted and fought. And at Apex Innovations, in the lobby where Robert was once told he didn't belong, 3 photos hang in places of honor. Margaret Chen, smiling, brilliant, beautiful. The strategic mind behind the original vision. Lily Chen, young, hopeful, dreaming of helping others. The inspiration for everything that followed. And Robert Chen, old, wrinkled, gray-haired, holding his presidential medal, the man who proved that age is power. Below the photos, a permanent plaque. Here stood a man who was told he was too old to matter. He proved that wisdom, experience, and love are ageless. His legacy lives in every person who refuses to be invisible simply because they've lived, and every day. Thousands of employees walk past those photos, young and old, diverse in every way, and remember, age is not what limits us. Prejudice is. Experience is not what holds us back. Dismissing it is. Gray hair is not a sign of decline. It's a crown of wisdom. Robert Chen didn't just save a company. He changed how the world sees age. And that change, like all his best work, was built on love.